Hi, I'm Mr. Cuffs, and we're taping a segment based on an examination that is going to be topics 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, and 7.6, which goes from imperialism to progressivism to World War I. And there's roughly, well, there's two versions of the multiple choice. There's a lot of redundant questions, but for sake of argument, it's a third on each topic and it's in order. So the first 10 or 11 questions are on imperialism. Let's break down things you need to know. Mahan was the Navy. The influence of sea power upon history was his book. And he argued that control of the sea is key to world domination. Josiah Strong was a Reverend Josiah Strong, and he was a missionary. He also wrote a book called Our Country, Its Future and Present Crisis, and he advocated for expansionism and for imperialism to spread American values and religion to backward nations. Why did imperialism exist? A need for raw materials and a need to expand a marketplace. And in America, imperialism existed in large part because the American Industrial Revolution gave us a lot of products to peddle to other places in the world. So it was a need for increased markets around the world. The test, one of the versions gets into a boundary dispute in Venezuela. And if you look in AMSCO, and I feel like I should point this out, do I have my AMSCO? You might want to make note of this.
Please excuse the interruption. Would Salomia Makarchuk please come to the guidance office?
Who? Josh's sister. That's a cool name.
I don't know he had a sister.
Okay. The Venezuelan incident, President Cleveland and Secretary of State only, the boundary dispute ended up with, argued that the Monroe Doctrine applied to the situation, and it's really the beginning of reapplying the Monroe Doctrine in the region. One of the questions on one of the tests talks about who's in favor of American expansion and imperialism, and it gives a list of 4 names. It says who's least in favor of it. So let's talk about people that like imperialism. Teddy Roosevelt, Alfred Thayer Mahan. What about, here's a name for you, what about William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer? Would they be in favor of American imperialism? Yes. Why? Anyone want to answer that?
Made a good story.
Made a good story to sell more newspapers, right? It's just like, let's be honest, would CNN and Fox News like a war? Are you kidding me? What would that do for their ratings? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's the sad truth. The media likes the drama, right? CNN, Fox News, those are at peak, right? When there's like natural disasters. You know, if there's a hurricane or something, because that gets ratings. Who's against expansion, imperialism? Well, a lot of Democrats, William Jennings Bryan, Grover Cleveland. Labor leader Samuel Gompers sees it as capitalist greed, Eugene Debs. You don't have to write all those names down. Spanish-American War, 1898. Splendid little war. That's what Secretary of State Hayes said. It was a splendid little war. One of the causes was the sinking of the USS Maine, but what likely caused it? What likely caused it? Was it the Spanish? No, it was likely what? It was likely, why did the Maine sink? An accident, an explosion on the ship, an accidental explosion. McKinley goes to Congress to declare war, in large part because the American public and a lot of Republicans wanted him to. Although he'd say, other reasons, and that is indicated, just the place of that in AMSCO, because that would be something I would reread, because there's a couple complicated multiple choice about the Spanish-American War. So just to read a part of AMSCO, it would be 446 and 447. McKinley he goes to war and offers why we should support Cuba. So if the multiple choice, I told you the real reason, but he asked Congress mainly because he didn't think there was any other way for Cuba to get independence. And he wanted to end the barbarities there and end the bloodshed and protect the lives and property of the U.S. citizens living there. Of course, Congress agreed, but they passed the Teller Amendment that guaranteed that we would support Cuban independence and not take Cuba over. And that's important. Who was the guy that we fought with in the Spanish-American War against the Spanish, the Filipino, and then we fought against him? He's on one of the versions of the test. We fought against him after. He was the Filipino nationalist. Anyone remember the name? He was in a video we watched. He was in the reading. His name was Emilio Aguinaldo. There's an I in there. That's IU. Emilio Aguinaldo. Not the Delon guy. That was the letter of the cause of the war, right? What was the initial open door policy and argument to promote? Yeah, with who? China. The initial policy was for equal spheres of influence. Let's talk about Teddy for a second. The easiest question on the test is, what is Teddy? Does he love the outdoors? Yes. Did he give us the New Deal? No. That's Franklin. We haven't even got there yet. He gave us the